what's up? Today I'm going to show you a spaghetti and meat sauce that requires only one pan, takes about 25 to 30 minutes to make, and is actually better than any version that I've made with more time or more pots. To get started, I'll grab a large heavy bottom pot and drop it on the stove over medium-high heat. Once that's hot, in goes a little squiggle of olive oil, then 1 pound or 450 grams of 80/20 ground chuck. Next, I'll add in 8 ounces of hot Italian pork sausage. 8 ounces is roughly 2 links, by the way, and instead of buying bulk sausage, I cut open the casing of 2 links and popped out the meat. I like adding sausage to meat sauce as a quick, easy way to bring some additional flavors like fennel seed and paprika into the mix. Now I'll jump in with my meat smusher and crumble this meat down as far as I can get it. Since the cook time is going to be short for this dish, we really need to physically break down the proteins in the meat instead of letting time and heat do all the work for us. For example, in my classic bolognese recipe, I basically braised the ground meat in the oven for almost 2 hours. That builds a lot of flavor, but more importantly, makes the beef super soft and crumbly. We don't have that kind of time here, so I'll smush this meat while browning it for 5 to 10 minutes. And once this meat is taken on some nice color and is crumbled down into pieces that are about the size of a lentil or smaller, it's time to move on. Next, in goes 200 grams of medium chopped onions, 20 grams of garlic, and then a strong pinch of salt. By the way, the quickest way that I know to get an onion chopped up for a dish like this is a method that I call the weeknight dice. For that, I take a peeled halved onion and slice it 6 to 7 times from the north to the south pole. Then I'll turn it 90 degrees and chop every 1/4 inch or so. When I get down to the end part, I'll fold the onion forward to keep it balanced and then finish chopping it. This method is quite a bit easier and faster than the traditional 3-step way, and the outcome is uniform enough. Now I'll give these onions and garlic a quick stir to get them combined with the meat, and then I'll make sure to scrape the bottom a little bit with my wooden spoon as I go. There's a lot of beefiness starting to get stuck on the bottom of the pot here, and the moisture from the onions is going to help deglaze that so that it can become part of our sauce instead of burnt on the bottom of the pot. Next, I'll pop a lid onto this pot so that the onions can steam down and soften up quickly, and then I'll preheat my oven to 425F so that I can finish this sauce in the oven. And after 5 minutes of lid on cooking over medium heat, my onions are getting nice and tender and things are starting to glaze up the bottom of the pot one more time. So from here, I'll add in 1 gram of dried oregano, 1 gram of chili flake, and then 75 grams of tomato paste. Tomato paste is by far my favorite shortcut to get deep tomato flavor in a sauce with way less time. It's kind of like tomato bouillon. Next, I'll stir to get everything combined, and then I'll cook this until the tomato paste has had a chance to sizzle off and lose some of its tinny canned flavor. And once it's looking orangey red and things are smelling spicy, it's time to move on. The next thing in is actual bouillon. I've got 15 grams of better than bouillon beef base going in because this is a meat-based sauce after all, and this little dose of bouillon is going to help mimic the depth that we would get from a lower, slower cooked meat sauce. Next, in goes 1 28-ounce can or about 800 grams of nice tasting crushed tomatoes. Then I'll take this empty can over to my sink and fill it up with water. Normally, adding water to sauce would be antithetical to making it more flavorful, but this is setting us up for what's to come. So the water goes in, then I'll add 6 to 8 grams of salt, 7 to 8 grams of sugar, and then I'll give everything a stir and bring it up to a medium simmer. Next, I'll add in 10 grams of chopped fresh basil. I prefer the sweet, peppery, almost anisey flavor of fresh basil here to dried, but if all you have is dried, no sweat, 1 gram of that should go in with the oregano we added in earlier. Now for the weird stuff. Into this simmering sauce, I'm going to add in 12 ounces or 340 grams of broken spaghetti. And when I say broken, specifically, I mean broken in half. By the way, I do not recommend breaking all 12 ounces at once for this reason. Instead, I'd say snap down 10 to 15 noodles at a time. You also get more uniform pieces that way. Next, I'll come back and stir to get this pasta fully submerged in the liquid, but don't worry about stirring to fully combine because at this point the noodles are pretty brittle and too much force will snap them into much smaller pieces. So once they are more or less submerged, I'll simmer them for about 60 seconds to soften them. That's the literal perfect amount of time to thank Seed for sponsoring this video. Over the last couple of years, I've really learned the importance of not just taking a high quality probiotic every day, but a scientifically proven high quality probiotic. The one that I take is Seed's DSO1 Daily Synbiotic. Seed has worked with leading scientists and researchers to develop DSO1, which is their 2-in-1 prebiotic and probiotic. It's made with 24 clinically and scientifically studied strains of bacteria that have benefits well beyond gut health. Yes, supporting regularity is very important, but also this probiotic supports heart and skin health. And you guys have heard me talk about this before, but it's really important that if you're taking a probiotic, it actually makes it all the way to your gut. So Seed uses a ViaCap capsule within a capsule system to protect the bacteria from heat, moisture, stomach acid, and enzymes to make sure it ends up where it's actually supposed to. Your colon. So if you've been meaning to try Seed, now is actually a really good time. From March 14th through the 25th, 2023, Seed is offering 30% off your first month supply. That's actually the best deal that I've ever seen them offer. So to get it, go to seed.com/Brian and use code Brian to get 30% off your first month supply of DSO1 Daily Synbiotic. After 60 seconds of simmering, these noodles have simmered just enough to allow us to stir them fully into the sauce. So I'll do that by carefully pushing from the bottom to bring some of that sauce up to the top, and then I'll carefully use the back of my spoon to smooth and layer those noodles within that sauce. And once everything is tucked in here, I'll kill the heat and then move this pot over to the oven to finish cooking for 16 to 18 minutes. And if you're thinking, hey Bri, this whole one pot noodle situation is outrageous, I agree with you, but in my recent lasagna video, I figured out that plain old noodles don't need to be cooked so long as there is enough hot liquid around them. In fact, somehow the texture is better, like it's more evenly cooked since we're hydrating the spaghetti or lasagna noodles slower than we would be in boiling water. And after 5 minutes of bake time here, I'll come back and slide this pot out carefully and then stir everything up. Inevitably, there's going to be spots with more or less sauce, and redistributing that moisture is essential for getting things cooked properly. I'll do my best to make sure these noodles are submerged, and then I'll load this back in and check back in 5 more minutes. 5 minutes later, or at the 10-minute mark, I'll repeat the stirring one more time. You can already see that the noodles are getting quite bendy and tender at this point, but the sauce is still pretty loose. This whole setup needs another 6 to 8 minutes in the oven so that the noodles can soak that up. Again, I'll do my best here to make sure as many of these noodles are sitting below the sauce line as possible. Then I'll load it back in and keep on cooking. And after 16 to 18 minutes of bake time, it's time to pull this out and take a look. As you can see, it looks dope. And cooking the sauce in the oven gave us quite a bit of roasty browning that we would have missed out on the stovetop. The last step here is to determine pasta doneness by giving a couple noodles a bite. And wow, that's delicious. It's got a really great texture and it's maybe just past al dente, which is where I want it. Lastly, I'll add in 50 grams of grated Parmesan cheese and stir that in. My Aunt Karen, who is a great cook, taught me not to fear adding cheese right into meat sauce. It makes things rounder, more umami, and softens some of the acidity from the tomatoes. Woo! Woo! You guys, this dish has the perfect ratio of meat sauce to noodle, and the two are seamlessly integrated into a delicious and dynamic whole in a way that I've never had before. And like I said in the intro of this video, this version of spaghetti and meat sauce is not just a fast one, but now, in my opinion, it's the best version that I could make at home, and it'll definitely be replacing the more labor-intensive one that I've used in the past. It's meaty, deeply robust, a tiny touch sweet, it's umami, it's really the full package, you guys, and I really hope you try it soon. Let's eat this thing. Oh, by the way, here's a link to that lasagna video that I mentioned earlier. The noodles also don't get boiled. What a world, you guys.